Just skip to the part where I get the house. We all know how this ends. My sister said that out loud, in a lawyer's office, in front of everyone. I was sitting directly across from her, hands folded, quiet. And I thought to myself, oh, it ends, just not the way you think. My name is Delia. I'm 34 years old, and this is the story of the day everything my family assumed about me got destroyed by a single document. I'm not a doctor or a lawyer or someone with an impressive title. I'm a freelance grant writer. I work for nonprofits, helping small organizations find funding so they can keep their doors open. It's not glamorous work. It doesn't come with a corner office or a salary that impresses anyone at family dinners. But it's mine. I built it from nothing, and I'm proud of it. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the one people forgot to include in photos, the one who got a good job when she deserved a standing ovation. My sister Renee was different. Renee was the prized child, the one they always praised. Our mother treated her like she was made of something rare, something worth protecting and investing in. Every opportunity, every dollar saved, every connection our mother had went directly to Renee. I got hand-me-down clothes and hollow encouragement. I put myself through community college. I took out small loans, worked part-time at a copy shop, and built my career one grant proposal at a time. I never asked our family for a single dollar, not once. But there was one person in my family who actually saw me, our Aunt Clara. She was my mother's older sister, and she was nothing like the rest of them. She asked about my work. She remembered the names of the organizations I helped. She sent me birthday cards with handwritten notes inside, sometimes 2 or 3 paragraphs long. She once told me, I wasn't rich or polished or loud, but Aunt Clara always said I had something Renee didn't. I actually showed up. Aunt Clara passed away 6 weeks ago, and now the family had gathered like birds on a wire, waiting for what she had left behind. If your family always bet on someone else but never on you, hit that subscribe button right now. Tell me your story in the comments. You're in the right place. And click hype so others who need to hear this can find us. Let's go. 3 days before the will reading, the family gathered at Aunt Clara's house. Nobody called it what it really was. They called it sorting through her things, but everyone knew exactly what it was. It was a claiming, a staking of territory before the paperwork made anything official. Renee walked through that house like she already owned it. She ran her fingers along the kitchen counter. She stood in the center of the living room with her arms crossed, nodding slowly, like she was already mentally measuring for new furniture. She told our cousins which pieces of jewelry she was keeping. She told my mother which bedroom she planned to convert into a home office. Nobody questioned her, not one person. Then she turned to me. She smiled, the kind of smile that has never once been warm. You can have the old cookbooks and whatever's in the linen closet. That feels about right for your lifestyle. The room laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Enough for the sound to land exactly where she intended it to. I looked at my mother. She looked away. Then she said, quietly, Renee always had the closer relationship with Clara anyway. I didn't respond. I walked down the hall toward Aunt Clara's bedroom because I needed a moment away from the noise. The room still smelled like her, like lavender and old wood and the faint trace of the peppermint tea she drank every morning. I stood there for a few seconds, just breathing it in. That's when I saw it. In the top drawer of her dresser, tucked beneath a folded silk scarf, was a sealed envelope. My name was written on the front in Clara's handwriting. Careful, deliberate, unmistakably hers. I slipped it into my bag without making a sound. I was almost back to the hallway when Renee appeared in the doorway. What's that? She asked, nodding at my bag. Just an old card, nothing you'd care about. She held my gaze for a beat, then moved on. She had bigger things to calculate. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from Aunt Clara and a business card for her personal attorney, a man named Mr. Holt. On the back of the card, in her handwriting, were 6 words. He's been waiting for you, sweetheart. My hands were shaking when I dialed the number. Mr. Holt picked up on the second ring, as if he'd been expecting the call. He had been. He told me Clara had left specific instructions. He told me to come to the reading in 3 days and to tell no one what I knew. I hung up the phone and stood in front of my bathroom mirror for a long time. My eyes were wet, but I wasn't crying. I was something else entirely. I was finally, after 34 years, understood. The days between that phone call and the will reading were some of the strangest of my life. On the surface, everything looked the same. Underneath, everything had already changed. 2 days before the reading, I got a call from my cousin Brianna. She sounded uncomfortable, speaking in a low voice like someone might be listening. "Delia, I don't feel right not telling you this. Renee organized a meeting yesterday about the estate, about how to divide things fairly," she said. "You weren't invited." I sat with that for a moment. "Who was there?" I asked. "Me, Mom, two of the older cousins, and Renee." "Did they decide anything?" Brianna went quiet. "They talked about how to handle it if the will left anything unclear." I thanked her and hung up. Then I confronted my mother. "Why wasn't I included?" I asked. Simple, direct. She barely looked up from what she was doing. "We didn't think you'd have much to contribute, honestly." I didn't yell, I didn't slam anything. I opened my phone, created a new note, and wrote down exactly what she had said, word for word. The next evening was the family dinner, a small gathering before the reading, meant to feel warm and connected. It wasn't. Renee stood up halfway through the meal and raised her glass. She talked about Aunt Clara for 5 full minutes. She described long hospital visits, late-night phone calls, meals she had cooked and delivered. She painted herself as the devoted niece who had held Clara together in her final months. I stared at my plate. Because I was the one who drove Clara to chemotherapy, every appointment for 6 months. I was the one who sat in those waiting rooms with the bad lighting and the cold coffee, reading Clara magazines and making her laugh when the treatments made her feel low. Renee had been in Scottsdale during most of that period. I knew because Clara had told me, with sadness she tried to hide. Under the table, Brianna reached over and quietly squeezed my hand. My mother dabbed her eyes. "Renee, you were her angel." I excused myself from the table and went outside. The night air was cold. I stood on the porch and breathed until the tightness in my chest eased. Then came the worst of it. That same night, around 10 o'clock, there was a knock at my apartment door. I opened it to find Renee standing there, coat still on, smiling like she was doing me a favor by showing up. She walked in without being invited and sat down on my couch. "I just want you to be prepared," she said. "Clara loved you, but she was practical. Don't embarrass yourself tomorrow by expecting too much." She let that settle, then she leaned forward slightly. "If there are any small claims left to you, sign them over quietly. We'll make sure Mom still includes you in her own plans someday." I looked at her for a long moment, the smile on her face, the absolute certainty in her eyes. I walked to my front door and opened it. "I'll see you tomorrow, Renee." She left looking satisfied, like she had handled something messy and efficient. The door clicked shut behind her. I exhaled slowly. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. Something quieter had taken over, something steady. I was ready. What they didn't know was that Aunt Clara hadn't been sentimental or scattered in her final years. She had been building something, quietly, for me. When Mr. Holt and I spoke that first night, he told me the full picture. Aunt Clara had rewritten her will 14 months before she passed. Not when she was sick, not when she was scared or confused. She had done it on a clear Tuesday afternoon, over a year before her diagnosis, after attending a Christmas dinner where Renee had spent 20 minutes making jokes about my career in front of the whole family. Clara had called Mr. Holt the next morning. She told him, "The one who shows up without being asked is the one who deserves what I leave behind." What she left was not small. The house, fully paid off with no mortgage, a savings account, and a modest but carefully built investment portfolio she had been quietly growing for over 2 decades. She had lived simply her whole life, on purpose. I had driven her to every appointment. I had sat with her in the hard, quiet hours when the treatments left her exhausted, and she just needed someone nearby. I never mentioned it to anyone. I never asked for recognition. I never thought of it as something that required a reward. I just loved her. She remembered every single moment.
I sat alone in my apartment the night before the reading, and I thought about all of it. The cookbooks and the linen closet, the meeting I wasn't invited to, the toast Renee gave at dinner, the late-night visit meant to shrink me. Tomorrow morning, the whole story was going to change, and I was the only one in that family who already knew the ending. Mr. Holt called me at 8 o'clock the morning of the reading. His voice was calm and precise, the kind of calm that comes from decades of watching people's worst moments and refusing to be rattled by any of them. Then he told me something that straightened my spine.
2 weeks earlier, Renee had contacted his office. She had asked questions about the will. She had tried to find out what was in it before the reading. Mr. Holt had refused to share anything and had documented the entire call in writing. "I want you to know that if anything is challenged today," he said, "we have a very clear record." I thanked him and got dressed. When I arrived at the office, they were already there. Renee and my mother sat on one side of the conference table, flanked by two cousins Renee had brought along for reasons that had nothing to do with grief. It was a show of numbers, a quiet message that she had the room. As I walked in, I heard Renee lean toward one of the cousins and whisper, "She's here. Just look unbothered. This'll be quick." I sat down across from them. I made brief eye contact with Mr. Holt. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. I folded my hands on the table. Renee was relaxed. My mother was dabbing her eyes preemptively. The cousins were checking their phones. Everyone in that room, except for me and Mr. Holt, believed they already knew exactly how the next 30 minutes would go. Mr. Holt opened the folder. He adjusted his glasses. "Shall we begin?" He read through the opening sections of the will with quiet efficiency: a set of pearl earrings to a niece in Florida, a car to a neighbor's son who had helped Clara with yard work for years, a small cash gift to her church. Renee shifted in her seat. She glanced at her phone once, then put it face down. She was waiting. She was certain she was waiting for her name. Then Mr. Holt reached the primary clause. He read it clearly and without any particular emphasis, the way someone reads something true. The house, the savings account, the investment portfolio, bequeathed in full to Delia. The room went completely silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind where you become aware of the sound of the air. Renee's face did something I had never seen it do before. It went still, then it fractured. She let out a short, strange laugh. No, that's not right. Read it again." Mr. Holt looked up from the document. His expression did not change. "I've read it correctly, Miss Renee. The document was executed and witnessed 14 months ago." Renee turned to me. Her voice had an edge in it now, sharp and desperate. "What did you do? Did you manipulate her? She was sick. She wasn't thinking clearly." I kept my voice level. "She rewrote this will a full year before her diagnosis. Mr. Holt has the dates." My mother's composure broke. She pressed her hand over her mouth and shook her head. Clara wouldn't do this. Renee was her favorite. That word landed in me the way it always had, like a small familiar bruise. But I let it pass. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. Mr. Holt reached into the folder and removed a second document. He placed it on the table with the same quiet precision he had used for everything else. Miss Clara also prepared a personal letter to be read aloud in the event the will was disputed. He read it without drama. Clara's voice came through every sentence, measured and warm and absolutely clear. She wrote about what she had watched happen to me over the years: the dismissals, the laughter at my expense, the way my own family had treated my choices like a punchline. She wrote that she had seen me show up again and again without ever being asked and without ever expecting anything in return. The letter ended with one sentence: "Delia never asked me for a single thing. That's exactly why she gets everything." Renee stood up. Her chair scraped back hard against the floor. "I'm contesting this. I'll get an attorney and I will contest every word of it." Mr. Holt did not stand. He did not raise his voice. "You're welcome to do that," he said. "I'd also note that I've documented your attempt to access this document prior to today's reading. That documentation will be available to any court." The color left Renee's face. I picked up my bag. I looked at Mr. Holt and said, "Thank you."
Then I walked out of that office, into the cold morning air, leaving the noise of that room completely behind me. Weeks passed. Renee hired an attorney. I was told she was determined, loud, and sure of herself. Then she learned about Mr. Holt's documentation. The attorney calls stopped. The contest was quietly dropped. I didn't celebrate. I didn't call anyone. I didn't post a single word about any of it. What I did was drive to Aunt Clara's house on a Saturday morning, let myself in with the key Mr. Holt had given me, and sit in her favorite chair by the window. The house smelled like her still, like lavender and peppermint and old wood. I sat there for a long time and just breathed it in. On her bookshelf, tucked between two hardcovers, was a small framed quote I had never noticed before. "The one who stays is the one who builds." My mother called me once, a few weeks after everything settled. She didn't apologize. She asked if I planned to keep the family connected through the property, if I'd host holidays, if things could go back to feeling normal. I was kind. I meant it. "I'll always love you, Mom, but I'm done auditioning for a role in this family." I used a portion of Clara's investment portfolio to fund a small annual grant for young women building careers in the nonprofit sector. I named it after her. It felt like the most honest thing I could do with what she had given me. I spent 34 years waiting for my family to see my worth. Turns out the right person already had. She just waited for the right moment to show everyone else. If someone in your family did all the quiet work and got none of the credit, or if you were that person, I want to hear your story in the comments. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this one, and click hype to help this reach everyone who has ever been the one who stayed. They deserve to know they're not invisible. Standing up for yourself is tough. If you've been there, subscribe and become part of our community. Let me know this story helped by clicking hype, and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel.